Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this week's episode of the Better at Beach podcast. Once again, you are being welcomed by Brandon Joyner. Mark is currently, I think he's in New York now. He's on the road. He's traveling around. He's running camps. He just got done running a private event at his house in St. Pete, Florida, and now he is heading up north to run one of my favorite camps of the season. I unfortunately won't be there this year, but it's the Long Island, New York camp. Never been to Long Island. Awesome beach, beautiful sand, really cool downtown area. So if you're looking for a place in that camp, go ahead and reach out to us. Before we get going, I just want to go ahead and talk about today's episode is going to be somewhat of an extension from last week. Last week, we talked a lot about setting. We talked a lot about technique. We talked a lot about, it was the three biggest mistakes that people are making. And after the episode was done, I realized, based on comments that I had gotten from you guys or people that have reached out, is that we were only really talking about perfect situations. And so today, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but we want to talk about how setters can kind of hold themselves accountable to improve plays as well. Whether your partner gives you a bad pass or if we're in transition and somebody spikes the ball at you or your partner. So how do we make a good set when we feel uncomfortable? That's going to be what we're going to talk about today. If there's anything else setting-wise that you would love for us to go over, please, in the comments, tell us what type of setting techniques, what type of setting questions do you guys have? We create these episodes to help you guys get better at beach. Mark and I can talk about pretty much anything, but we love it when you guys help us out a little bit. Okay, before we get going, we got some more camps coming up. So I already said this weekend for May 30th to June 1st, Mark is going to be running a camp in Long Island, New York. There is still some space available. I will be heading down south from Hermosa Beach to San Diego, where I will be running a camp there from May 30th to June 1st at Wave Beach. Really excited to make it down there. Haven't been there yet, but I've heard nothing but great things. June 6th to the 8th, we're heading to Tacoma, Washington. That camp is also sold out, but if you are on the wait list, take a look at your email. We've had, I think in the last 2 days, we've had 2 people that need to drop out. We are in that weird window of our cancellation policy, but we want to make sure that this camp is full because it is sold out. So we give you guys up to 48 hours to respond to our emails. If you don't respond before then we move on to the next person in line. We have about 9 people on that wait list. Also, if you're from Tacoma, keep an eye on our events page. Usually what we do is after we go to an event, we book another one. So this camp is sold out both times that we've been there. So make sure you keep an eye on it. Then jumping down to the end of June 20th to the 22nd, I will be back home in Virginia running a camp at TVA, Tidewater Volleyball Association, or Tidewater Volleyball Center in Virginia Beach. I love Virginia Beach. It's awesome. We play at an indoor facility, but then they have courts out on the beach, which we can go play out afterwards. And the downtown area there is really cool. June 20th to 22nd, if you're in California, we've got another Santa Monica camp happening. 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Make sure you guys check that out. June 27th to the 29th, we are heading to Milwaukee, Wisconsin with Volley Life. And then moving on to the end of July 18th to the 20th, we will be in Des Moines, Iowa. And then we will be heading to Bend, Oregon the following weekend, July 25th to the 27th. August 1st, we are heading to Santa Rosa, California. And then August 22nd to the 24th, we are finally heading to Chicago. I know we're excited. Hopefully a lot of those Chicagians are excited as well. And then October 3rd to the 5th, we are heading to Youngsville, Louisiana. That is going to be another fun camp. When I was last time I was in Louisiana, I met a really fun crew. And now I'm excited to bring a camp to their beach, which I think will be fun. Other than that, that's our 3-day camp schedule. We also have our week-long camp that is happening in the Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Okay, we have it at an all-inclusive resort. It is from November 29th to December 5th. We stay at a beautiful, beautiful property, the Paradisus Palma Real. 5 whatever star restaurants. I think they're 5-star restaurants. Great buffet, all you can drink. The rooms are amazing, especially for those long volleyball days. You're going to be comfy. You're going to sleep well. Yeah, it's just a great time. So go ahead and check those out. If you want to come work with us in person, we would love to see you at a camp soon. Online, we've got a couple different offerings for you guys. One, we are still running our online coaching service. We're going to be working with them right after this podcast. Right now, we are going through the end of the passing course, and we are moving on to the setting course. Okay, so if you guys are interested in getting better at setting, if you liked last week's podcast and you want to put it into practice, make sure that you reach out to us, and we will get you started on that. Also, last announcement, clubs. We have started, and well, it's been in the works for the last couple years. I've been working with a couple different clubs and high schools across the country where I work as a club consultant, coach, development, curator kind of thing. I work with clubs or high schools, and we meet with you guys. We kind of let the coaches and the facility kind of gel together. We create systems that are easy to follow, and then put you guys through little workshops, little idea building opportunities, practice plan creation that allows you guys to not only run an effective club, but also facilitate the correct information to your coaches, to your players. Everybody that's involved gets access to our online resources. We've got a couple spots left on that. I have a call tomorrow to fill one of those, hopefully. But if you're interested in working with us for this season, we have a limited amount of space. We're not trying to overwhelm ourselves, so we're only taking on 5 clubs, which means we only have a few spots left. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and reach out to us at support@betteratbeach.com, and we will get you on a call and see if you're a good fit for us. So, announcements done. All right, now we're ready to get back into setting. Okay, last week we talked a lot about in-system setting. We talked about our release. We talked about where our passers should be passing the ball. We talked about how being strong is super important. Finding the strength from your feet all the way up to the tips of your fingers when you're finishing, whether you're doing a platform pass or a setting pass or a hand set. So today we want to talk a little bit more about the idea, and it's more, especially if the pass goes somewhere that we're not thinking it's going to go, we have to rely more on our ideas than we can about our structure. Obviously, we want our structure, we want our foundation to look very similar. I think one of the biggest differences between pro, AVP, maybe even AAA, AA level players is that no matter what, and the opposite, which are beginners or like low intermediate, maybe mid intermediate lower players, the biggest difference between them is that they don't make bad passes look like bad passes. And what that means is, like, I think setters at a higher level are more willing to do work with their feet when they do not have the ball than lower level players. So a lot of times we hear this conversation of, oh, the pass was too tight. Oh, the pass was too far off the net. We hear all of these different ideas, but really it's just you as a setter were becoming a ball watcher. And we kind of touched on this a little bit last time, but man, a ball watcher, one of my biggest pet peeves. I think Allie Denny might have coined this term, or JM, and it makes a lot of sense. If you feel like you are always late or you're chasing a ball, it probably has to do with the fact that you're not anticipating where your passer is going to pass to. And instead, you are watching them make the pass and then trying to catch up to it. Those are two very different ideas. And the tough part is is if you are that latter person, if you're the ball watcher and your partner passes a perfect pass, you're doing is watching them pass that perfect pass. You're never going to actually be there to set their perfect pass. So we need to make sure, once again, this is kind of same talk that we had with last time, is like, let's trust our passers, let's trust our defenders, and make sure that we're closing the gap to where we want to where we want to set the ball from, rather than wondering where they're going to pass or where they're going to dig. Right? We can always talk about fixing their target location if they're not going somewhere, right? But I kind of, when it always reminds me of whenever I'm at camps. I've worked so many camps at this point in my life that I can like pick up on the things that are coming next, and think common things that I've said is, imagine that when you're playing, you're not the player anymore. You're the coach. And if you're waiting back and you are watching your passer pass the ball and you're continuously late, then we can't really talk to that passer. We're always going to be talking to you as the setter, right? So think about me as a coach. I know it's hard to do that sometimes because I'm not with you, but just imagine me like a little angel on your shoulder, and or the devil, whichever one you want to use, but hopefully the angel. But I want you to think about putting the pressure on your passer to pass well, or your digger to pass well. And the only way that you can do that is by getting yourself to that position. If the setter is releasing on time and the passer isn't passing to that location, now as a coach, I can start talking to the passer rather than the setter. And that should kind of always be your goal whenever you're playing. Obviously, we don't want to push doubt onto our partners, but you want to do your job well enough that you can start communicating to your partner about what they're doing. Obviously, we don't want it to be too coachy, but if you're not doing your job and then you're asking something obnoxious from your setter, that's how tension starts to rise, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So passers, pass well. Setters, don't be a ball watcher. Get to your spot. After that, it just becomes about fixing the play. So now we're kind of in the situation where we've done all we can as setters. If you don't know what that is, make sure you go back and watch last week's podcast, because I spent probably too long talking about everything that setters need to be doing. Okay. For this week, we're only talking about fixing. The first thing that I would say is that we want to make sure that we can speed up so that we can slow down. All right. And what that means is, sometimes if we're waiting back, we will run at a slow pace, which makes us meet the ball with a lot of energy, and we can't slow down. It's like an emergency reaction. We're just diving after this ball, and we're hitting it in the air, and that's our only goal. Volleyball is, I've been having this conversation a lot with the groups that I've been working with, and volleyball is an extremely stressful sport. And setters, it's your job to alleviate stress. And so if you are moving into your contact and you still have a lot of energy, whether your feet are still moving, whether you're just swinging your arms violently at this ball, you're not lowering the stress, right? If anything, you're escalating it beyond return. It can never be fixed, right? So we want to make sure that we speed up so that when we're making our touch, we're slow and controlled. And sometimes it's not, I know that's like, it's easier said than done. Sometimes you're going to be sprinting after the ball, but we can still make our touch last longer than we think it should. And I think that's kind of the difference between alleviating stress and not. And so whenever we're making that touch, a really easy idea, if we're thinking about speeding up so that you can slow down, is hold your finish longer than you want to. That is going to give you the idea of slowing down, and it's going to give the illusion of reducing the stress for your partner. Okay. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking a lot about attacking. But for right now, when we're setting, we're trying to make our set as calm as possible, because our first step of our approach for our attacker has to be slow and controlled. And a lot of the times, if we just throw our hands at the ball violently, or we don't think about slowing down the play, then our attacker's approach it matches our energy. So if I'm the setter and I'm just throwing my arms at this ball, a lot of times my attacker's approach will look the exact same. They just run through that first step. Now they're underneath it. Now they're way too early, and they're going to put themselves in trouble for attacking and scoring. So think about that. Not only are you trying to make a good set, but you're also trying to make a calm set to keep your attacker calmer. You know, I'm not, I would be the last person to say that I'm an expert on relationships, but I've had a decent amount of partners, and I think I've figured out ways to talk to them on the volleyball court. And if we're just using verbal cues, if you guys ever get in an argument with somebody, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a kid, whether it's another adult that you're playing with, whatever it is, if they start off the conversation yelling at you and you yell back at them, that's when fights happen, right? That's when there's arguing back and forth. Everybody wants to be heard. Nobody's listening. That's what happens. Same thing when we're passing. If I pass the ball and it doesn't go to the spot, there's a lot of stress on that ball already. And so if you go and you meet that touch with another stressful touch, then that's us yelling back and forth, right? But and this happens sometimes with Mark and I, is if I approach Mark in a way where I'm frustrated and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is eating me up, and I'm mad, and I just need to vent, and I yell at Mark, but then all of a sudden, and this was actually started when he had Mackenzie, or when he got married, but Mark has become an extremely patient human being. And instead of meeting me with my energy, he started meeting me with like a calmness and almost like a reassurance of like, hey, even though you're frustrated at this point, we're not going to let that bother us. Like, just let that go. Take a deep breath. I got you. Relax, and let's move on. And just because he approached the conversation that way, it allowed me to settle down. And now I can move forward with the problem that I had, but now I can solve it in a lot more, maybe thought. I can use more thought. I'm not rushing to a conclusion. Same thing when we're setting. If I'm the passer and I give Mark a bad pass, but all of a sudden Mark's able to handle it calmly, and he's not adding stress to that touch, then that's going to make me calm down as well. So even though we're not in a great position, we're not in the ideal position that we want to be, he's done his job of alleviating the stress in the conversation or in the play. And now I'm able to move forward with my last contact or my problem, and I'm able to fix it even better. Okay. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you treat those first 3 touches as a relationship. You're never trying to add burdens to your partner. You're only trying to make them better. Okay. So that's our first step. This next one is, we see it a lot. It's an extremely simple idea, but for some reason it's tough. And I think I know the problem is stop trying to set perfect balls on bad plays. Sometimes surviving is the answer. And if somebody passes the ball, so for right now, I want you guys to imagine we're on a court and a perfect pass lands about 6 feet off the net. So that means as a setter, I'm setting from 6 feet off the net. In a perfect world, depending on your height, so I'm 6'5", if somebody is 5'10", they're going to hit a different set than me. So for me, I'm 6'5". I like to hit around 3 to 4 feet off the net. For somebody that's 5'10", they might like to hit 4 to 5 feet off the net. If you're 5'4", you might like to hit 6 to 8 feet off the net. regardless, this isn't this conversation, but if you're somebody that says you like the set tighter than 3 feet, you're just setting yourself up for problems. Stop asking for tight sets. It's not worth it. Um, okay. So now we've seen that. We know that the pass is at 6 feet. My set goes to 3 feet. All right. The further I am off the net, the further my set needs to land. And I think that that makes sense when you say it out loud. When I say it out loud, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Right. So if I'm passing the ball at 10 feet, now my set cannot go to 3 feet. It's too tight. The angle is too weird from a ball coming from that far off the net for you to now attack the same hit. So what has to happen is that set location has to jump off with the pass, right? I don't think we ever really want to set behind 10 feet, but if I'm setting a ball from the inline, the attacker should be ready to hit from 10 feet. One of the biggest errors that we see is that people always overset. It doesn't matter if it's a perfect pass or a pass that's off the net. Oversetting is not okay. Be okay missing off. We want our attacker to be able to decide where they want to hit rather than being forced. And a lot of the times, if you set tight, you are deciding where your hitter is hitting, whether you know it or not. If I play against somebody who is setting tight, I might not win every point, but I know that on defense, I'm going to be able to shrink the court enough based on the set location and where you're contacting the ball, where eventually I'm going to win the necessary amount of points to beat you, right? And as an attacker, when we're talking about setting, we don't ever want to put ourselves in that situation. So be okay with getting that set off the net. I think the easiest fix for this, one of the keys that we talk about a lot, I actually don't think I mentioned this last week, is we always want to be square to our target. Okay. And what that means is that wherever your attacker is going to be hitting from, you should be facing that location while you're setting, maybe even before you're setting. So as you're approaching the ball, you should find that square. So if I'm setting the ball all the way to the pin, I should be facing the pin. If I'm setting the ball 6 feet inside from the pin, I should be facing 6 feet inside the pin. All right. I think what happens is when we're inside out, it's a lot easier for us to maintain that squareness. Sometimes we forget it, but it's a lot easier for us to maintain it. When we're running off of the net to save a ball, I think some of us try to square up even when we shouldn't. And we want to do all the work we can, but strength and stability is first. Okay, so if you can find strength and stability and find your square, that's great. But if you're running off the net and you have not found your strength and stability and you're only working on your square, what that looks like is it looks like you're rotating through your set. And a lot of times, if we're rotating through our set, that's what's going to cause it to go tight, because we're usually rotating into the court to fix that ball. So instead, I don't want you to worry about squaring up on offsets. I just want you to think about finding your new square. So if I'm running, and let's say I'm playing right side and my partner's playing left side, and they pass the ball off the net, and now my chest is facing the corner behind my passer. This is hard to talk about with a podcast, but I'm sure you guys are with me. Is now, instead of me trying to turn around and have my chest face the antenna, I'm just going to keep my chest facing that deep corner, kind of facing my passer. And now my new square is off of my right shoulder. So now I'm going to be kind of passing and setting this ball sideways. Okay. I think that will eliminate. And once again, remember, what I started this conversation with is structure is still important, but the idea is what matters. So sometimes we're not able to think about all of the extra off foot, net foot, set, don't drop the champagne, get your hands in a high basket. We have all these ideas of what we want to accomplish, but at the end of the day, you have to think about where am I trying to put this ball? And sometimes you have to just find it. right? Sometime I can't remember the last time I talked about this, but commonly we like to say 80% of your touch should feel fundamentals, and then 20% of your touch should feel like touch. Like that's when you're kind of playing around. You're just doing the extra thing to get it to its location, right? That's in a perfect situation, right? So if we have a shanked pass or we have a shanked dig, which means that it didn't go to the right location, then that percentage changes because we're not going to be able to get 80% of our fundamentals. So we only get 50% of our fundamentals, but we still have to find that 100%. So it's going to require more touch. It's going to require maybe some twisting. It's going to require a little bit longer of a finish and holding and directing. So be willing to play around with that. Our goal is still to find those fundamentals, but we can also rely on touch a little bit as well. Okay. And then our last thing seems simple, but so many times when I run camps or when I run practices or I'm just running a drill in general with some friends, know which arm your attacker hits with. Your job is to set a hittable ball. Okay. So we have to make sure we know what arm our attacker is spiking with. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in the middle of a drill. It's like day 3 of a camp, and these guys have been playing together on the same court for 3 days. And I'll say, hey, Alex, what arm does Brandon hit with? And he'll be like, I don't know. Like, well, how are you supposed to make a good set if you don't know which arm your attacker hits with? That's a vital piece of information. And the main reason for that is as setters, we have to make sure that we're hitting our attacker's attacking side. Okay. And that when I say hit, I mean that's where the ball should be landing. So we always like to say, land it on your party side. So this one requires a little bit of video, but if I'm right-handed, if I have my hand above my right side and I'm going, that's me partying, right? If I'm over and I have my arm across my body and I'm making that same move, I just look weird. And nobody likes to party with that guy. Okay. So make sure that you are setting your attacker up to have fun at the party, right? A lot of times that has to come down to a set call, right? So with Better at Beach, we use a number system. So it's always like you're reading a book. It's always left to right. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like the 1s and the 5s are on the outside. 3 is right in the middle. So 1 on the far left pin, 2 is just a little bit inside, 3 right in the middle of the court, 4 just a little bit to the right, and then 5 all the way on the right side of the pin. Those zones they're important to know, but setters, you also still need to realize what arm is your attacker hitting with when they call those zones. So if I'm a right-handed player and I'm playing on the left side of the court, which means my right shoulder is inside of the court, and I call for a 1, my setter should be missing closer to a 2 than out of bounds. Because if they miss on a 2, then that means that ball is still on my attacking shoulder, right? Vice versa, if I'm on the right side of the court and now I'm mainly calling for a 4, which would be that kind of second zone from the middle. If I call for a 4 and I'm right-handed, meaning that my right shoulder is closer to the sideline now, then my partner should be missing closer to a 5 than a 3. Okay. And so it's a skill that I think is extremely hard to develop, but this is where peripherals come in. So when you're setting, a lot of the time we are so focused on the ball that we can't feel where our attacker is. But as we're approaching the ball, we need to somehow be able to look above us and see where that ball is. But then also out of the corners of our eye or our peripherals, we should be able to see where our partner is in relation to us and maybe even start to realize the tempo. This is something that I got a lot of work on this when I was an indoor setter. I had to rely on my peripherals, not only for the blockers on the other side of the net, but I always had to read my attackers and kind of meet them as well. So I've gotten a lot of practice at this. It did not happen overnight. With beach volleyball, it is a little bit simplified because we're not so worried about the attacker on the other side of the net the blocker on the other side of the net. Unless you're planning on optioning, then that's when maybe you would jump, see if they jump with you, and then decide to set. That's a very high level conversation. But for the sake of our common listeners, we want to think about seeing that ball come in, but then trying to meet our attacker on their hitting shoulder. Sometimes attackers lie. Sometimes they make terrible calls, right? Like if I'm playing with Mark and I end up on a knee in the middle of the court and I call for a 1, Mark isn't just going to set this ball all the way to the outside. He's going to realize that I had to take this play into the middle of the court and he needs to leave me inside, because if he doesn't, then it's not going to end up on my right shoulder. So make sure that you are always trying to think about where is your attacker's hitting shoulder and try to find that. Okay. Be okay with missing big on your attacker's shoulder, right? I would almost rather see if somebody calls for a 4 on the right side. Remember, we're back on the right side. So now my right shoulder is closer to the sideline. If I call for a 4, if you miss me on a 3, I'm mad. If you miss me by pushing the ball all the way outside the court, but it's still on my right shoulder, I can still work with that. I can still make something of that. All right. So be okay with missing big on attackers hitting shoulders. That might save you some points. And it might just feel like you're finding a better rhythm, right? Because now attackers won't feel like they're chasing in a weird spot with that arm across their body and like the awkward partying position. And instead, even though they feel like they're not there, they're still going to be on their party side, which is really cool. All right. And last thing, be okay with being bold. Okay. I think especially for beginners, for low intermediate level players, a lot of the times if we don't get a good pass, we just think about getting the ball in the air. Okay, and this might contradict a little bit of what I said in the second point where I said make sure we're setting off the net. We have to find a happy medium there, right? Off the net, remember, 10 feet is the minimum. Or 10 feet is the maximum of how far off the net you should be setting your attacker, right? If you happen to miss close, that's okay. We just don't want it to become a common theme. So if you're a setter, even if you feel like you're not in a perfect position, if you're kind of running away from this play and you're just like, man, I'm just trying to make this play survive, still have the idea of aim small, miss small. It's not just keep the balloon off the ground and hit it in the air and hope that your partner can send the ball back over the net. No, we're still trying to score. We got an opportunity to score, so we have to try. We're going to make sure that we're thinking about our location. We're going to be smart with it, but we're also going to be bold. We're going to make sure that we try to get that ball all the way up to the net so that our attacker has a chance of scoring, right? Sure. If we're in no place to do this, getting the ball up in the air and sending it back over as a free ball is okay, right? And just because I'm talking about the setters being bold doesn't mean attackers need to become bold too. Keeping the ball in play, going with a high swing, keeping that ball over the net, we're putting enough pressure on the other side of the court to where we're probably going to get another opportunity. And that time we're probably going to feel more controlled. So a lot of mixed communication coming from me right now. But what I want you guys to think about is defense isn't necessarily about scoring points. It's about putting the other team in the most uncomfortable situations possible so that eventually you get a comfortable opportunity to try to score. So if somebody hits a ball at me and I dig it in the air and my partner gives me a set, let's say I'm 15 feet off the net, it's okay to free ball it over the net. Try to put it in a smart spot, short, deep, to the weaker player, whatever you want to do. Because the goal is that they were probably comfortable in that first situation. I'm hoping to put them in a less comfortable situation on this next one, because if they do, they might hit it at me easier. And now I get a dig that's in the right spot. I get a set. And now that's when I can take my chance and try to score or put them in an even more uncomfortable situation where possibly the next ball I get is a free ball, right? So be okay with the play developing, be okay with trying to put the other side in as much trouble as possible, because if you do that time after time, eventually you're going to be the one that turns into the offensive team, and you're going to be able to score a little bit easier. So, yeah, that's those are kind of our ideas. The last thing that I'll say before we end this one is be okay communicating with your partner, not only during the rally, but also afterwards. I think sometimes talking about the set can turn into either setters feeling a little like unconfident, or they feel like they have the targets on them. So if they get any feedback, sometimes we take it in a weird way. And attackers, when we are communicating to our setters, we don't want it to sound complainy, but that's like the way that it comes off a lot for some reason. It's okay to give feedback to your partner. Just do it in a nice way. A lot of times, once again, the compliment sandwich does a great job. Hey, really good set, but if you were to leave it a foot inside more, that would have been perfect. Hey, really good effort, but if that ball could be 2 feet higher, it would help me out a lot. A lot of times, especially in warm-ups, Mark and I, we learned this from Adam Roberts, who's been on the podcast before, phenomenal guy, but he uses a scale out of 10 in his warm-up sets. And Mark and I started doing this, and every single set that we get, we either say 10 out of 10 if it's perfect, or we say 9, 8, whatever, 7. We're extremely honest. Mark and I have known each other for like 20 years now, so we're allowed to be extremely honest with one another and not have any hard feelings. But if Mark gets a set from me and he says 9 out of 10, I always ask, what could make it a 10 out of 10? Sometimes it's so small. Hold the ball a little bit longer. Give me like 3 more inches, right? Like there are these little ideas, and it's not complaining. It's you telling your setter what you need to feel the most comfortable to score. And that should be welcomed information. It should be something where, hey, I know you're not complaining. You're just telling me everything that you need for us to win. And if I'm your partner, I want to hear that every single time. I don't want you to tell me every single point, especially if you have a bad like tone or anything like that. But be okay with constant reminders. Be okay with positive reinforcement, right? We don't want, this is another thing that we see at our camps is like, they'll tell me that they haven't gotten a good set all day, and then all of a sudden they get a good set and they don't say anything to their partner then either. Be okay with saying, hey, that was perfect. That's what I'm looking for every single time. That way you always have something to go back on, right? Be like, hey, that last one was perfect, the one you said just now, and then you'll realize that the setter will start being the one to lead the conversation. They'll be like, that one was too far, wasn't it? And once that conversation started, that's when you guys can find a rhythm. That's when you guys will find your way into like your perfect offense. And if you have never done it, go on the journey. Be a good partner. Listen to what your attacker needs. Setters, try to figure it out for them. As a setter in college and a setter kind of mentality, I always take the blame for hitters' attacks, but I also always try to see, okay, it looked like you contacted that ball a little low. The next one, I'm going to give you a little bit more height. So be willing to fix that. All right. So that's setting. Hopefully we covered a lot of the difficult situations today. A lot of them are extremely tricky. If you guys have something that you want us to dive deeper into, once again, leave it in the comments. Send us a DM on Instagram, whatever you want to do. We love podcast ideas. We are currently moving into our setting portion of our online coaching. So that's why we are following a specific script. But we love little one-off episodes, especially if we feel like it's important or it's relatable. Yeah, so I think that's all we got time for today. Once again, if you have not gotten the chance to join us at a camp, make sure you come find us. We've got camps all over the country. You will not regret it. We do group rates, so if you got a group, hit us up, support@betterbeach.com. Once again, if you're interested in learning about our setting portion of our online coaching, we are also getting ready to start that. I'm meeting with the group just after this, and we are going to officially start the setting courses. So really fun. Those communities, Mark usually runs those meetings. I've been working with them since last week and this week, and it's just a fun crew. Everybody is extremely motivated. It's extremely interactive, where you guys can ask questions. I give you answers. I watch game film on these people that are in the groups. We talk about it. We celebrate small wins, and we fix small difficulties. So yeah, it's a good time. So come join us. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I believe Mark will be back here next week. So the crew will be back. But as always, I appreciate you. I'm sure I will see a lot of you guys soon, and we'll see you on the sand. See y'all.